Okay, so I thought I'd do a side-by-side comparison of the cover that I drew for Under the Tavern. And Under the Tavern has been quite successful, over 1,000 copies sold in the various different formats. Some of the copies were sold on Drive-Thru RPG, only a handful, but most of them were sold direct through my own website, thedmg.info/store. So, this was actually one of the first illustrations I'd done in quite a while. I hadn't drawn anything for a couple of years prior to actually illustrating this. And I'd like to just go through the process of what I actually did so that you get an idea and a feel for why it looks the way that it does and what I wanted to achieve and didn't want to achieve, and did I achieve it or not achieve it with this image. Now, I'll preface this: when I say things like mistakes, I mean a learning experience for me. This does not mean that one should not draw this way. If you enjoy drawing a certain way and it's your style, that is your style of doing things, there are just certain things that I feel I need to improve, and if you can learn from something like that, then that's fine. If you want to do it another way, that's also fine. I'm by no means the oracle nor arbiter of what is defined as art. So, first thing I'd like to say, if we have a look at this image, I did not do a pencil underdrawing of this first. So normally, if you've watched some of my other videos where you've actually seen me actually drawing the images from scratch, from a blank piece of paper, you'll see me use a pencil to do the under image first and then build up the structure of it and so on and so forth, and then ink it afterwards. So the way that this actually started was I started drawing this part here first, and I was just doodling. I started it a little bit off center. I had no idea of exactly what this building was going to look like and all that sort of thing. And I just kind of started building the image outwards from this point. And so I then started doing the patches around the edges here, and so on and so forth. And so this is where things get a little bit warped in terms of perspective, in terms of the way that this actually works. So the perspective here, you've got the actual building. You can see there's a bit of a dent in the roof. It goes back here. I kind of tried to get back to perspective, but the building sort of leans a little bit to the left, and the perspective is kind of all warped. I then also didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do underneath it. I was just doodling at the time, and it kind of became the cover for this adventure that I had written. Well, I actually came out in video form first while I was writing it. So by the time I'd actually started the adventure on my other channel, I had not actually completed the entire adventure. I just knew that I wanted to do something long. And in the first couple of videos, I said, something appears on the lower level, dungeon level 5. So I basically pre-cooked in the fact that I was going to have to do 80 videos. I wasn't really thinking clearly, but so there it is. So this is why you've got this sort of little platform, and then I started doodling stuff underneath, started working on these little rooms and things at the bottom, and the image began to grow from there. Now, one of the things that this actually did allow me to do was to add in a lot of interesting bits. So there's lots of little things like the little chest here and the skeleton, and the coffin and the thing lurking in the dark, and all these kind of little things. I didn't know what to have in the background, so we've just added a cart to give it a sort of small town feel, and decided, the adventure was at night, so now it's at night. Of course, this started to affect the way the whole thing is shaded. So I didn't do my deep shadow shading that I normally do, although I did do it down at the bottom here in this tunnel. I did start the deep shadow shading, and a little bit over here. But of course, the lighting is all kind of over the show in here because I didn't start with a light source, This image is now more about the detail and less about the light source, because it's kind of haphazard and all over the show. One example of this was drawn before this was drawn. So before the moon. So the moon would be going the light this way, so there would not be shadow on this side. So there's little things like that that you'll see in this image, which, you know, I'm giving it all away now. You look and think, oh my god, this is crap. So yeah, that's you know, these are the things in hindsight, and when you're doodling around, when you haven't started with a structure, or you know, started with certain things, these are the kinds of, and I put in inverted commas, mistakes that you're going to make. Now, as I said, these are sort of, you know, happy mistakes. I was not going for anything, you know, crazy realistic or anything like that. I just started doodling, and so that's why this really looks like a crumpled shoebox as opposed to an actual structure. Now, as I say in a lot of my videos, I try to have one element that pops out, and this is the element here, the little balcony. That really pushes out of the image. Even when I blew this up to A1, because I use it in the backgrounds of my videos now, when I blew this up to A1, this really kind of, when you're standing in front of it, it really does feel like this is actually jutting out of the image. This whole little section here really stands out. So I'm really happy with that part of the image. Things that were kind of tacked on. This was kind of tacked on because I needed to go, oh, this is an inn. So you can actually see in the image, you can kind of tell that the line from that actually goes through there. And so this was an afterthought and was kind of tacked on. I didn't use any whiteout or anything like that. I just committed to the lines that existed and added it on while I was drawing. And there's a few things that are like that. I'll point out that one's the most obvious, but when you're doing things in ink, you're committing to a line and you're committing to what's in there. So thematically, when I started drawing this, it was not going to be the cover, and by the time I had actually finished doing about half of the inn, I decided, oh, okay, this should be the tavern for Under the Tavern. So I hadn't really considered where the title was going to be, which is going to be here now. And I hadn't considered, you know, all the various elements that were going to be in this. Of course, Under the Tavern, one would assume we would concentrate more on what is below the actual tavern. So, you know, that would have been, if I was actually going to redraw this, I would give more emphasis to what's actually below and work on this more and leave a lot less of this sort of side stuff happening here. Now, this is where I just started to place elements that are in the actual module, so concentrating on things like the water here, the water creatures, the crocodile and the tentacle, the vermin, the giant spiders, there's the whole vampire thing that runs over a couple of levels, there's the undead skeletons, and there's the thing lurking in the darkness below, which is the ultimate monster battle that you have to do in the game. Of course, there's all kinds of like buried treasure. This is actually a clue to there being treasure in a hole. This is actually a clue to something in the game. I drew this in there. Of course, I thought no one's ever going to notice that. But if a player were to look at the cover, there is a, like, you know, extremely cryptic and highly unnoticeable clue of some treasure buried in things. So that's that refers to something specific in the actual module. And here there's all those subterranean bridges that occur, and you know, the other thing is just that obviously the module starts at night, so that's why it's night. The dark sky here with the moon. Now you can see the reason why I've put up both versions of this image, both the original drawing scan and the Photoshop manipulated levels things. You can actually see what a difference it makes once you do the adjustment, and how the illustration to me actually comes alive once you've messed with the curve. So it doesn't really change any of the detailing as such. It kind of punches everything out, so a nice monochromatic look, and enhances even these images like this section I talked about before. So that's why I do that. It really makes the image nice and crisp, and really it's that nice dark white and sorry, dark blacks and high contrast whites, which is clearly my favorite way of doing things. So there's a lot of texture and things in this image, and this image took quite a while to do. Again, with the textures and the lighting, I've done things like glass in here. We've got bricks, we've got stones, we've got floor flagstones. We've got not skeletons, scales. We do have a skeleton with bones. We've got wheat. We've got walls with bricks. We've got tiles for the roof. We've got this sort of stucco sort of material. We've got wooden planks. We've got wooden doors. We've got hinges. We've got all kinds of things. And one of the things that that I really enjoyed doing with this one, and this is the first time I actually did this, was the moon. So I really this was a big experiment for me on how to do the moon, make it very interesting. And I have used this technique in probably about 4 or 5 drawings since this one. So that was the development of my moon technique. Now, one of the things you'll also notice if you look in the original image, you'll see that the Dark Night Sky, not Batman, I obviously did circles and then filled in around the circles with marker. So you can see all the marker points around there. And that took a lot of work. So what I tend to do now is I only leave circles where there is larger elements in the sky, if it's a night shot, and then I use a white white ink gel marker to actually then do the stars and stuff, which is a lot more successful and a lot easier to achieve. So you can use a much wider marker to actually then fill in the black area and then do the stars over the top of that, because this would have taken me quite a while to just go in and around, and you can see all the actual markings around the dots and things. You can see where I had to do quite a lot of filling in to get this done. And then also you've got a change in texture from the pens to the markers, and you can see where I sort of haloed the image and then filled in with markers here. So having different markers available to do your filling in, and wide chiseled markers makes this job a lot easier, especially now that I use much larger areas of black, because in the end it doesn't really matter, because when you see here, you see none of the texture in the final image, and none of it down the left side here. So it doesn't really matter from that standpoint, because I knew obviously when I was doing it that the computer would be able to eliminate those markings. But in the original image you can see that it's quite different. Yeah, so thematically, I really like this image. Structurally, I have a hindsight problem with it, because I did not use the pencil underdrawing first, which would have corrected a lot of this sort of wobbly look to the building. And I started from a strange place, which we said was this door, and then drew out from there. And then, of course, my light sources all over the show. But in the end, I enjoyed drawing this. It was the first thing I'd done in a few years, and people have commented how they like the drawing and all these sort of things. So it was not a failure by any sense of the imagination or any sense of the word. It is successful, but it is, it's something I can learn from and improve upon. And to me, that's where the success is I've learned something from doing this image. That is probably the best thing you can get out of any drawing, is to have learned something and then happily move on to the next drawing and incorporate those lessons into it. So everything is bare and open for you to examine. Obviously, if you have purchased this product, thank you very much. And I look forward to chatting with you again in the next Drawing Worlds video. Please be sure to subscribe and like and all that other wonderful things. And of course, there are products available in the description below to help support the making of this channel. Thank you very much, and goodbye.